I was honored that the pastors asked me for my story on the theme, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might." I do want to do this, but I'm sure that as my church family, you already know that this is an evolving story for me. I haven't arrived. Jan interviewed all the elders when she came. When she spoke to me, I told her that I hoped First Presbyterian Church of Allentown would be a church that if we ever found our country in a Nazi-type situation, that we'd stand strong for Christ, unlike so many churches in Germany. Now, Jan, you must know, did not roll her eyes at me, even though I'm sure that most of the elders didn't answer that way. What I didn't tell Jan was that I was currently in a small personal crisis and having trouble standing strong for Christ in small things. In the shadow of many deaths of the people I served as guardian, the death of my father following COVID, and the searing grief of my mother, I hit the wall of my limitations at work, and I was knocked down. I knew that this was so deeply painful because I was hearing voices of my youth and the values of our current culture. I knew that in kingdom thinking, I had the gifts I needed to do well at my work, as long as I agreed to be my part of the body and not to try to be something else, like Apostle Paul taught us and our own Mark Simmons so finely addressed the other week. But I wanted the position that came with being so much more. But like usual, God has been gracious to me. God got the right book in my hands, With Head and Heart by Howard Thurman, the great 20th century pastor. While Reverend Thurman was touring the world, his host in India assailed him for being a Christian. He said that Christians had caused so much suffering for people of color. How could Reverend Thurman betray them all with his association with the church? Later in the book, in a section on children, Reverend Thurman addressed this by saying that he'd seen children in the most dire of circumstances who had been immersed in the knowledge that they were children of God. He had seen them live lives of deep dignity and ability and purpose in the midst of their need. The kingdom living that happened in the Black church transformed the possibilities for these children. This is not to say that it is okay that children should suffer in this way, but it is to say that the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, our God, can work good where the world puts tremendous barriers. This brought me hope and encouragement to trust kingdom living even more than my ego. So I hope I'm on the road again to standing strong for Christ in small things and in large, and that I trust more deeply that I'm being helped by the most awesome, gracious God. So I still hope that FPCA will stand strong for Christ if we come into a dreaded time of trial. And you can roll your eyes, because I know people don't say this to you every day. And I wonder if we, our church, presently in this transition, aren't being tested as to whether we're choosing kingdom living or living in this world. Are we living out that the church belongs to Christ and not to us? Are we speaking our disagreement in love to the people in the church that can change things and not to the person who is closest to us? Are we evaluating our behavior on the basis of Christ's teaching, then confessing and forgiving when we don't measure up? We know that if we confess and forgive, that God's grace abounds to open new doors of opportunity to love and service in amazing fellowship that is truly not of this world. It's a real thing. So now is a good training ground to follow Christ every day, every minute. And when we fail, which we will, to own up, not only as individuals, but as God's people, this beloved church. One thing I know for certain is that when we, the church, follow Christ, we will experience joy, love, and peace beyond understanding. We will know abundant life. We will know the good life. is up to our choosing.